Hello, this is Angela, Sinette Nature Angela. Welcome to the City of Healing, where the city resides within. I am here with the infamous Joe Drumgool, co-worker and friend that we've had a couple of interesting conversations about spirituality and science, and we're just going to do a brief talk about it. I'm going to let him first tell a little bit about himself, if you will.
Okay, I'm 54 years old and I'm married. I have 5 children. I've retired from the Army Reserves after 32 years. I was a paramedic for almost 10 years, and I have an electronics background prior to that, so I've kind of done a lot of things, and I'm surely a science, technology, and education type of guy, but my family had always firm spiritual underpinnings and the importance of that. And so as a young boy, I can remember probably the most far-reaching thoughts of trying to reconcile, my love of science with the love of spirituality and various things like that.
Right, right. So I know in passing we have had you teasing me about my spiritual interest and my gemstones and different things like that.
Yes.
We've had certain conversations about spiritual experiences and your rationalizing a scientific reason as to it happening. Can you explain more as to why you did that?
Well, from a very young age, you notice, extrasensory perceptions, or you have feelings of deja vu, or an event about to take place and it happens, and so you try to make a connection. How did I happen upon that? And I'm a rational, empirical guy, so in a lot of cases, I try to reconcile those things. Was it just random, or was there something from a universal thing or some type of science that I wasn't aware of? And so you get a formal education, you get a science education, and then you go to church or mass, and then you get a spiritual education. And very often they're at odds with each other. But I feel that, as a person grows older, finding what works for you and how you reconcile those is, brings you to a fulfillment and completion.
Right.
And so that, I would think that would be a quest for anybody.
Yeah. Would you say that you are more scientific or spiritual?
Well, I'm a very rational and scientific guy. I like evidence. I like to see things. I like to understand how things work. Dissecting various things. From a young age, I was taking apart stuff, vacuum cleaners, watches, clocks. I had chemistry sets, telescopes. I wanted to understand gravity, just like any curious kid. And but then you come into church and you really have to, that brought an interest to me in the Bible, and so you really have to be more of an independent person to find the answers that you're looking for in the spiritual side, although a priest or a minister or a pastor will try to help you find that, but they give a general explanation. So, some things can't be explained, and with that said, you try to find explanations that work for yourself. So I'm probably more of an empirical here's now, because there's so many interpretations, and how man has, come to the conclusions that they have. You wonder if it's from divine, I call it the celestial wireless, or if it's just from their imagination, or is imagination related to that. So for me, I like practical, empirical evidence, and the scientific process makes sense to me. But then there's a side of me that there are a lot of answers that even scientists can't find, and you seek those answers out. And so it's a never-ending quest, I think.
Right.
But I'm probably more of a scientific person. But I'm getting more into the aspects of the spiritual and mystical. And I think to become a complete person, I have to, that quest for that knowledge has to be achieved as well, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I would say that you are more scientific too, because we've had very scientific conversations, and also I've dug deeper, and you've also, you know, in our conversations, you know, and you have come up with some spiritual or experiences that had no scientific rationale. Can you describe those?
You know, I was at a new building I was responsible for, and it was like 400,000 square feet, and I mean that was multiple experiences there. I came in contact with 5 coyotes by myself, and there's a flights and response to anything that's emergent. So when you're around wild animals, especially, you know, large coyotes that have the ability to kill you, you sense things. And so for me, that experience with the fight or flight syndrome and the release of epinephrine, that brought me into a different realm. I had read about it, but I had never experienced it when your life is on the line.
Right.
And I came out on the top end of that. I didn't get attacked or anything, but because of my size, I learned from a behaviorist that the animals didn't attack me, but I could truly feel the tension between us. And, you know, a man can't talk to a coyote, but in a sense, I kind of let them know spiritually without saying a word, I'm ready, you know, don't touch me, and they retreated, you know. So I don't know if that was luck or science. And then I also saw some what is commonly known as a ghost. I was at work, I smelled a potting soil, like musty, moldy smell, and I looked up, and all of a sudden I see an aborigine go by, and I was like, well, am I healthy? What did I just see? But I wasn't afraid, and so I went back to Google, and I typed in what I saw, and sure enough, that aborigine had been seen in that area numerous times, like hundreds of times, multiple listings on it. So you have to wonder, was it real? Have other people seen it before? What is it? And that's a question that nobody can answer, you know, until they get it on tape and, you know, captured, or if it's real, or, you know, it might be some chemical in the soil or something that people are breathing in to make them hallucinate. But I truly didn't feel like I was hallucinating. And upon immediately doing it, I called my wife, as anybody would do, you know, their significant other, because that's the first person you're going to consult. And she kind of not blew it off, or she was like, you've been working too hard or something like that. But I told her, I said, no, I'm serious. You know, I've never told you anything like this. So I still wonder to this day, you know, what that was, and I can't give an answer. And I just blow it off. I come back to it periodically.
Can you describe the apparition?
It was commonly what is known. I learned a lot about that particular aborigine. It's called a white lady, and it was a long flowing gown, and it was just floating, and she was rubbing her hands together like that. I don't know what that was signifying. It happened at about 10 o'clock at night. We had battle assemblies the next day, so as a facility manager, by the time I got finished with everything I had to do, I said, I'll just go ahead and stay the night. And I was busy at my desk doing some work. I got up to take a break and walk around to get some relief, and that's when I saw it. And I smelled it before I saw it. So 2 of my senses, you know, sight and smell, were surely activated by the sight of that. And I'd seen Scooby-Doo many times, you know, and most of the time I look for some logical explanation. Does somebody have some type of 3D projector? You know, there are a lot of amusements in with Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, Universal Studios, SeaWorld, and a lot of the veterans there had dual jobs. You know, it was a reserve. Although I was a full-timer, it was a reserve forces base. So I thought maybe somebody was playing tricks on me. So I searched around, I looked around, and surprisingly, I was inquisitive, but I wasn't afraid, you know. So I even looked at my response. If somebody said, if I saw a ghost, you know, I worked as a paramedic. I've been in the back of the unit with deceased people and gone to sleep because, you know, there was nothing more I could do for them, or they had expired in the ambulance. I called the code. I called into the emergency room to let them know. and then we had to transport the decedent to the ER so they could look at it and make sure everything was as I said it was. I was never wrong, but I wasn't fearful, and so that was my experience. So there are things you can't explain. Everybody can say, for people let go of a steering wheel and somehow or another they made it through an accident unscathed or anything. No human being has all the answers, even the greatest scientists.
Right.
And there's, Einstein, a great physicist and person very versed with math. He calculated or found a proof for actions of subatomic particles that he couldn't explain. He called it spooky action because he came to the conclusion that this couldn't be, that a particle could be infinitely away and mirror the particle that you could see.
Right, and didn't Einstein say that imagination is greater than science?
Yes, he did, and that's what allowed him to be as successful as he was. So the things that you think, and I think anybody that's inquisitive, they're going to, you can imagine, I imagine, as a young child, I imagined Wi-Fi, remote control cars, battery powered. All those things have come to fruition over the years. But as a young kid, I tell my kids all the time, I said, you enjoy the fruits of the imagination of people. And obviously I wasn't the only one to wonder about the development of those things, and they have come to pass,
Yeah.
But it stirs up an interest in me. I don't, hopefully you've understood that I haven't been exclusively had an aversion to your concept. I think it's wonderful. Very often, healthcare is transitioning in that way where you got to give a person what they need. So there's the scientific side of healthcare and there's a spiritual side of healthcare. So it may be a person may need a psychologist or psychiatrist, or they may need a priest or a pastor. And then there's a whole concept, with medical and unconventional. I think it's chiropractor, Chinese medicine, acupuncture. All of those things were thought to be quackery, but for some reason there's the placebo effect. You can give somebody a sugar pill and it helps some people.
That's right.
So those are things we can't answer. There's still an immense amount of knowledge we have to acquire. Most of it has happened in the last 125 years.
Yeah.
We made some great strides, but there's still lots of other things that need to be investigated.
Right.
But I think my relationship with you is steel sharpens steel. So I can learn from you, and you can learn from me. And I think everybody's on a quest to know thyself and have the questions answered during this lifetime the best way that they can.
I agree.
And so I am interested in it. Your knowledge, you've taught me about different stones and things like that, and I looked it up. I have interest in the formation of rocks and stones and things like that, or meteors, and they're extraterrestrial, the meteors coming from other places.
Yeah.
So it invokes wonder.
Yeah.
And wonder sends you on a quest, and I'm a person that I've always liked to learn things.
Yeah.
And hopefully before my time to check out, that I will have enough answers to be satisfied, and have the answers. And some things I just have to defer to. I'll never get the answer. But I think given the strides that people are making now with DNA and all, that, and immunotherapy, space travel, we're seeing some great strides.
I agree.
So that's life.
Yeah.
And I don't see how a person would not get through it without answering some of their questions. Some people, if you would say ignorance is bliss, so if you didn't have any questions, you must be awfully happy. But
yeah, that's right. One final question,
Okay.
brief question before we wrap it up, if you can answer it in this set. Is the world, or was the earth, created on spirituality or science?
That's an excellent question, something I ponder all the time. I grew up in Monmouth County, New Jersey. There is Bell Labs. So the Big Bang was discovered there by two physicists who went outside to clear out an antenna and because they thought it was a bird's nest in there. And they kept on looking, and they heard this noise that the universe emits at a certain frequency, and they couldn't get rid of it. And they came to the conclusion, and had mathematical proofs for it, and physicists, physical science proofs for it, that there had been an explosion, and the Earth was, different scientists like Kepler, with an expanding universe, that this was the remnants. The sound was the remnant of a massive explosion. So that's where the Big Bang comes from. So for me, that's the same as the chicken or the egg, which came first. But I think, and I told my daughter, who I can have deep conversations with, I thought that the human being itself was a physical manifestation of a universe, an aware universe, or something ahead of it, that physically brought us into existence. It's taken billions of years, but we are the product of that. Whether it's multiverse or a single universe, I kind of think that awareness is in the universe. It's an organism, but it's an organism from the beginning, it was an organism with no materialization. And so the universe had to come about in order for the human being to come about. And I have yet, although people talk about extraterrestrials, I have yet to see any other beings or living organisms except for what are here on the earth. And, but I do think there's a higher plane or a different dimension of existence that's not visible, and really existence itself, or consciousness, lies with perception. So, and that's a philosophical question that when you take, Philosophy 101, if the tree falls in the forest and no one's there to see it, did it fall? So you have to be aware of something first. But I think that we are the awareness of the universe, and I think inevitably we're going to come back to, we are a physical manifestation of something that is alive, but not something we're cognizant of.
That's excellent.
And that's how I reconcile it.
There you go.
All right.
That's something to continue to ponder about.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thanks for visiting.
Oh, my pleasure. Hopefully I didn't ramble on too long.
No,
but
excellent.
Yeah, but it's a pleasure to talk with somebody like you, because, and I honestly mean that, because you let me tap into a realm that I don't dwell in, completely, but I can extract a lot of good things from that.
Great.
To help me get through the day.
All right. Talk with you soon.
All right, talk to you soon. Thank you.
Bye.